My girlfriend lied to me about her age and is actually 18. I'm shocked and I don't know if I can proceed with this relationship. Long story short, I was using Hinge and I sent her a comment since I saw from her profile that we had a lot in common. It said she was 21, goes to a nearby college, etc. She even confirmed that with me, telling me a birthday that would say that she's 21. We matched in the fall of 2020 and have been dating since November to now. Well, it wasn't until our most recent date where at this time I asked if she wanted to get drinks and she tells me that she can't. Obviously, drinking age is 21 and up, and she said she wanted to tell me for a while, but she was using the dating apps while in high school. So at 15, she put that her age was 18 and never deleted it. She said that she just forgot about it, and I know that people use dating apps when they're a year or two younger, but for months she kept it a secret. She was my first girlfriend and meant a lot to me. She gave me space because she said that she knows it's a lot to take in. The thing is, I don't know if I can move past this, and I feel weird dating someone way younger than me. She says she loves me and that we can make this work, but is that even possible? If I knew her true age at the time that I messaged her, even if we had all this in common or got along well, I still wouldn't have dated her. I'm 25 and I want to be able to have a future and significant other who I can share that life with, but she's not on the same level of finances and life that I am. And she probably won't be for a few years if I do stick it out. What should I do? In 2019, I got into a car accident and injured my left leg severely. My ex-girlfriend was the one driving and was the one responsible for the accident because she was fighting and yelling at me in the car over a minor issue. I advised her to either stop fighting or stop driving, but she was reckless and didn't care that she was risking not only my life, but hers as well. I suffered for months because of my leg. I had a severe infection resulting in amputation and had to use assisted tools to be able to move. My ex-girlfriend became distant and my parents were my main carers. Her treatment towards me took a 180 turn. Suddenly, I wasn't good enough for her anymore, and at some point, she started comparing me to other fully functional guys, claiming I wasn't the problem. It's her low self-esteem, and she was required to look for a partner with a better look, financial stability, and so on. She made my trauma all about her and how being with a guy with one leg affected her self-esteem. She broke things off with me, and our relationship was supposed to end that day, but I foolishly spent months and months begging and convincing her that we were meant to be together. I even promised her that I'd do all I can to be able to walk again, and reminded her of the plans we had together, and I hated myself for it. My self-esteem was almost non-existent. I was dealing with PTSD on top of that. I fucked up and resorted to medication to ease the pain. Therapy was on and off for me because I'd get extremely agitated at the mention of my ex-girlfriend. I was so stupid thinking she was my one and only, and it got worse when I became convinced that no one will accept me and my disability since it's the reason my relationship with my ex-girlfriend ended. My parents helped us so much. They and a few friends supported me to get through this after seeing my overall health decline. In the past 6 months, I was given the opportunity to be able to walk again after getting my prosthetic leg. It was long overdue, but money was the main problem. I'm a lot better now. My health is getting better, my mental health improved, and gained more self-confidence. My ex-girlfriend reached out to one of my friends wanting to talk to me about getting the prosthesis and bettering my health. My friend was like a messenger between us, but I kept her in the dark so that she knows nothing more than what my friend knows. I made it clear that I have no intentions to speak to her or discuss my health with her. My friend was respectful and stopped speaking to her about me. She visited my mom last week and left her number with her expecting me to call. My mom told me that my ex was out of town and was low contact with everyone and couldn't check in on me despite wanting to. She said I've never left her mind and that she was feeling happy and excited for my experience with my new prosthesis. Right now, she's waiting for me to call so we can get together and talk, but I didn't feel comfortable with the idea. I gotta say, I felt nostalgic and wanted to call her number a few times, but part of me prevented me from doing so. It's been a week and I didn't call her. I'm not sure if I still have feelings for her. My family said that I should talk to her. After all, we've known each other for 7 years. It's clear that she wants to connect, but I just don't think this is what I want. How should I deal with this pressure?
Am I the asshole for telling a man that I didn't consent to seeing his nips? I'm 26 female and a new mom, so I'm pretty exhausted all the time. I get barely any sleep, and honestly my body is just so tired. A couple days ago, one of my friends, 26 female, called me and my baby to go out, so I thought it'd be nice to take a nice day trip since I haven't done it in so long. She also invited her boyfriend and one of his friends. We spent the day downtown and ate lunch in a nice restaurant. It was fun until my baby got fussy, so I decided to feed her. We were at a park area, so I sat down on a faraway bench and started feeding. I had everyone's bags. Her friend's boyfriend came to grab something, and when he saw me breastfeeding, he got so pissed. He demanded I stop feeding because he didn't consent to seeing my nips. I apologized, but he kept insulting me and getting louder. I ended up going back home and left. My friend threw a get-together, and he was there. When he saw me, he rolled his eyes and said, "Oh, not you again." The party was fun, but he was rude to me the whole time. There was an arm wrestling match, and he lost, and before the next one, he ripped his shirt off. I was grossed out, and he saw my face and asked what crawled up your ass. I got mad and responded, "Please put your shirt back on. I didn't consent to seeing your nips." He said it doesn't work that way because I'm a guy. We argued, and he called me a B-word, crazy feminist, and an uptight asshole.
Am I wrong for telling my sister-in-law no one cares that she's pregnant? My cousin, 33 female, who I'll call Mary, lost her husband, 32 male, and 2 of her 3 children, 3 female and 9-month-old male, in a car accident last week. Her and her daughter, 5, are as you would expect, and it's just heartbreaking. Well, today was the funeral, and my brother's wife announced her pregnancy the second they arrived at our house this morning, and we were like, okay, congratulations, but please keep it on the down low for today. Well, when we arrived at the church, she kept making gagging sounds and rubbing her stomach, saying, I, as a mom, can't imagine what she's going through. They have no kids, so people would look at her and she'd tell them she was pregnant. Afterwards, at my aunt's house, my sister-in-law kept making everything about her. Like, someone was in the bathroom, and my sister-in-law would loudly say, "Pregnant lady needs to pee." She literally told my cousin to give her her seat so the lady with the baby could rest her feet. I ignored her until she came to Mary, stuck out her flat belly, and said, "Me and Isaac just found out I was pregnant, and honestly, we are beside ourselves. It could happen to us." Mary broke down crying. I snapped. Who says that to a woman who just literally lost 2 babies? I said loudly to my sister-in-law, "No one gives an F you're pregnant. Look around. It's not just 1, but 2 babies' funerals, not to mention the love of Mary's life. Like, I knew you were an attention seeker, but for fuck's sake, you took the test 4 days ago. Just leave." She did leave in tears, and my brother called me a fat, bitter bitch. I've gotten phone calls from my brother and my sister-in-law's family calling me the world of names because I made a pregnant woman cry. Mary and my aunt thanked me, but if I'm being honest, I feel bad about causing a scene. So please put me in my place if I'm wrong. Her husband, your brother should have pulled her aside and be like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing? Shut the fuck up." But if he don't do it, you can do it. So, little update. I found out this morning that my brother and my sister-in-law harassed my cousin with phone calls for her to talk to me about yesterday. My aunt gave both of them an earful and then made my cousin turn off her phone. My brother and my sister-in-law were at my parents' house trying to get their side in when I arrived. They both came at me screaming and yelling about my sister-in-law's feelings, and she couldn't miscarry from the stress I caused her. Sister-in-law said if I didn't lose my attitude and apologize, I'd never be in their child's life. I told her I didn't care, and if she was going to use the kid as a weapon, I didn't want to be in their life anyway. Things got heated, and my father ended up kicking out my brother and my sister-in-law. So yeah, all this drama at a time, we should be there for one another.
Am I the asshole for upsetting my pregnant wife and causing her to cry? My wife is 2 months pregnant, and yesterday was my birthday. When I went into the kitchen, my wife told me she was going to work and wouldn't be home until late. She didn't even acknowledge my birthday. I asked her if she made any breakfast because she usually cooks for me on my birthday, and she told me to manage with cereal. I thought maybe she wanted to surprise me or something and just keep quiet. I cooked lunch for both of us and drove to my wife's office to spend time with her. I sat in the park waiting for her to come out for lunch. One of her colleagues saw me waiting and informed her. She came down and told me to go home and not embarrass her in front of her colleagues. I asked her to eat the food I cooked, but she threw it in the trash. I handed her the lunch and asked her to at least have it instead of the cafeteria food. She took it and threw it into the trash. I was hurt and embarrassed, so I immediately left for home. I was upset by then and no longer wanted to spend any time with her. I went to a movie, ate my favorite dinner, and then went to the beach for the rest of the evening. When I got home, my wife surprised me with a cake and a party. My in-laws and parents were there. I ignored my wife and then went back into the room. My mom got mad at me because my wife was crying. I then narrated everything that happened that day to everyone present. My mom's the only one on our side. My wife said her colleagues were teasing her, calling me a pen-necked husband.
Story time on how I lied to my boyfriend about being the father of my child. Okay, so boom, let's get right into it. So I have a boyfriend who's the love of my life, and I'm literally obsessed with him. I want to be with him forever. We've been together for 2 years, but unfortunately, my boyfriend ended up breaking my trust. You see, my boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend, and I found out that they've been sleeping with each other for the past year. Once I found out, my boyfriend begged and begged and begged for me to stay, and he cut all ties with my friend, telling me he doesn't want to lose me. I was so hurt, but because I loved him so much, I forgave him. But my forgiveness came with a price. I ended up having a one-night stand with his best friend. I wanted revenge, and I was being spiteful and just doing the whole tit-for-tat thing. But little did I know what was to come. Okay, so boom, like I said, after I found out that my boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend for over a year, I ended up having a one-night stand with his best friend because I wanted revenge. I was being spiteful and doing tit-for-tat. I felt horrible about it, and me and his best friend decided not to tell anyone. Well, I got pregnant, and without him knowing, I had a DNA test done on my boyfriend. He is not the father. And the only other person I slept with was his best friend. I really feel horrible, but 7 years later, my now husband still thinks my 7-year-old son is his. Am I the asshole for not telling him even though he cheated on me first?
Storytime about my unhealthy obsession with my ex-boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 18 and in 12th grade, and him and I have been dating for about 4 years, and it was around Thanksgiving, so it was pretty much college decision time. I got accepted into UCLA, and I was really happy because it was super close to home, and my boyfriend, who we're gonna call Devin, got accepted there also. So I was super excited that we did not have to do the long distance thing, until a week later he calls me, and apparently he got some soccer scholarship, so now he's going to Berkeley. So I was like, okay, maybe we can make long distance work. Well, then he tells me that he doesn't want to make it work and he thinks that we should just break up. Well, a week after that, him and I were sleeping together again, so I thought that meant that we were back together. But one day I was leaving his house and I heard his mom talking about me, and she was like, oh, is she coming to the Christmas party? And I was super, super happy. Until Devin says, oh, we're not together anymore and I'm thinking of inviting a different girl. Well, a week later, the party rolls around and I decide that I'm gonna show up anyways. So like I said, he thought that he was bringing some random girl to his Christmas party, and I decided that I was gonna show up there anyways. So I'm sitting in the car outside of his house the day of the Christmas party, pretty much just giving myself a little pep talk. Eventually I go up, I knock on the door, his dad answers, gives me a big hug, and tells me that he's downstairs with all of his cousins playing the video game. So I go downstairs, and as soon as I get down the stairs, all of his cousins look at me, and they give me the look of like, oh shit, she is not supposed to be here right now. And then I see the bathroom door closed with the light on. So I walk over, open the door, and what do I see? A girl from our school giving my boyfriend head. Well, my ex-boyfriend, but still, he was my boyfriend. So I didn't even give her time to get up before I started wailing on her. A few punches and kicks later, my boyfriend starts screaming in pain. After that, I got kicked out of the house, and I had to pay some medical bills because she bit my boyfriend. And I'm still on probation for beating her ass.
I think there's something in my attic. Like, not a person, maybe a person, but like a ghost, a spirit. So basically last night I got home at like 9 p.m. and I was 5 minutes late, like 5 minutes late to my house past my curfew. And I didn't want to go in through the front door. I didn't want my dad to literally harass me for being 5 minutes late. So I'm like, okay, I'll go in through the garage. So the garage door is opening. I step into the garage and I sit in the garage for like 2 minutes and I'm sitting there on my phone watching TikToks. As I'm watching these TikToks, I feel like I can hear something above me. And above my garage is an attic, but nobody's up there. Nothing's up there. Like maybe like 5 boxes full of just like old Monster High dolls. Like that's it. So I pause my TikTok and sure enough, it sounds like there's a TV up there or like music playing up there. It just sounded like there was a lot of noise coming from like a TV or like a, what's it called? A radio. Like it sounded like something like that. I'm literally getting chills talking about this. Oh my God. So I'm like sitting there just listening to it and I'm like, why do I hear that? So I put my phone down and I like look up, like out of a horror movie. I look up and I'm looking at the ceiling and everything just stopped. The music or whatever I heard up there stopped. And then I just hear a big bang, like a freaking, I'm like, I run inside fast as and I go upstairs, my dad's awake, and sure enough he's like, Kayla, why are you late? And I literally ignore what he said and I was like, Dad, is there anything in the garage? Do we have raccoons, mice? Is anybody living up there? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Kayla. And I tell him everything that I just said and he's like, I don't know, like I don't know what that could be. He didn't even care. I don't know what that was, but I heard it. I didn't hear things, I heard that. I'm just like so like weirded out. I personally don't think it's like a person living up there, because if somebody was living in my attic, I feel like they would have made themselves known by now. I think that's like something paranormal, because I'm telling you, I don't even think we have electricity in our attic, like, or no outlets to plug a TV or a radio in. So like, how is that possible? How is that possible? So yeah, and to make things worse, today, my dog would not leave my room. Like, to make this TikTok, I had to pick him up and drag him out of my room, but the entire day, he would not leave my room. Every time he would, like, try to go out in the hallway, he would, like, run back in my room like something hurt him, like he saw something, and he would just start whining. I went into the kitchen to make some food, and I just hear my dog whining from my room. And I'm like, why aren't you coming out into the kitchen? Like, I'll give you some food. And he's sitting, like, at the edge of my room, like, right where the door is, and he will not step over the door. Like, he will not leave my room. So I tried to pick him up and drag him out of there, and he ran back and ran under my bed. Like, I'm scared. I'm scared.
This girl wants to know if she's in the wrong for ruining Thanksgiving. She starts by saying she met her boyfriend 3 years ago. Before she met him, her boyfriend was in a relationship with his high school sweetheart. Apparently, the boyfriend's mom loved his high school sweetheart and was heartbroken that him and her had broken up. The high school sweetheart had been considered a part of the family. For the first year, the boyfriend's mom would call the writer by the high school sweetheart's name. After the boyfriend corrected the mom would still call the writer by the wrong name, like Janet when her name is Jenny. Well, a few weeks before Thanksgiving, the boyfriend and the writer were invited to a barbecue cookout at the boyfriend's sister's house. While there, the boyfriend's mom loudly exclaimed, "Why don't we let Janet make the Thanksgiving turkey this year?" So as you know, the writer's real name is Jenny, and she was fed up with the mom always calling her the wrong name. So the writer said that's a great idea and agreed to let Janet bring the turkey. On Thanksgiving,
Loves it except for me. It's obvious she has feelings for him. I spoke to my best friend about this and she admitted to having a crush on him. Problem is, she won't back off. My boyfriend says I have nothing to worry about. However, she went behind my back and bought him the new Xbox One for Christmas. She stole my idea. She knows I was going to buy him this for Christmas because I told her. She's given my boyfriend tons of hints, so he already knows what she got him. So now I'm gonna look like the asshole if I ask him to reject the gift. Plus, he's going all out for her Christmas gift as well since she spent so much on him. This is not okay with me. I've noticed that whenever we're together with my boyfriend, she always tries to make herself look better and subtly puts me down in tiny ways. I'm seriously tempted to end my friendship. My boyfriend says I'm overreacting. What should I do? I was a product of an affair between my mom and dad. My mom was already married and had a 1-year-old daughter. She wanted to abort me, but my dad begged her and paid her a hefty sum. She signed over all rights and I didn't see her for my 14 years of life. She recently contacted my dad saying she wanted to get to know me better, and he said it's entirely up to me. I was skeptical but decided to meet her. I've been talking to my mom's side for about 2 months when at a family gathering they all sat me down and said the reason they contacted me was because my half-sister was having kidney failure and was basically dying. At a loss for words, I got up and left. I told my dad and he said it's entirely up to me but I should get tested just to see before I make my decision. So I did. When my mom found out, she thought this was me agreeing and told everyone the good news. I did a lot of thinking and I decided I would not be donating my kidney. This family had done nothing for me. The only reason they tried to get in contact was for my kidney. So I don't want anything to do with them. I got loads of hateful calls and messages, but decided to stand by my decision. My stepsister called me and said I'm a douche for giving her false hope. People are saying I'm wrong because I can save a life. My stepsister did nothing wrong. But I feel so used. Am I the asshole for not giving my sister my kidney? Okay guys, I woke up to a DM about someone who's asking for help. So this is the story and I'm going to read it as if I'm her. She really needed advice and so she's going to be looking in the comments on what to do next. My friend is being abused. We met on social media and then we met in person and I saw the bruises all over her body. She also told me that in another friend group she's getting sexually abused and drug abuse. She made me promise to never go to the authorities because when she did last year, the bruises only got worse and nothing happened. A few days ago, the abuse got really bad and so she asked to come over to my house. My mom was suspicious and after she left, she made me tell her what was going on and so I had to tell her that her dad was abusing her. I begged her not to tell the police, but she did so anyway. The police have contacted my friend's dad and she keeps calling me and asking me if I'm the one who told and I have to lie to her. I will have to speak to the police soon as a witness. Should I talk about the sexual abuse and drug abuse with her friends when the police question me, or should I stay silent? Am I being a bad friend for going behind her back and going to authorities? I'm really sorry you're going through this, but I know my followers will give you the best advice they can, even in this kind of sticky situation. This is an ongoing mess that continues to haunt me. My sister is recently engaged to her boyfriend of many years. He proposed to her at one of our family barbecues, and I was really happy for them until I saw the ring. Sister had hinted that her and her boyfriend were discussing tying the knot and we discussed rings at length. I went online and searched for the type of ring she said she was interested in and happened across a very unique and pretty ring on Etsy, but it had a fake middle stone. As soon as I saw the ring, I recognized it. Everyone knows they're supposed to spend at least 3 to 4 months paying on an engagement ring. He has a good paying job and 4 months wages for him would be at least 8 to 10K at an estimate. I know for a fact that this ring was $450. I waited until the proposal was over and asked the couple for a quiet word, but that had the opposite effect as I was overheard by the entire family. I told my sister I had seen her ring online and it wasn't a real diamond or even expensive. I accused her boyfriend of trying to cheap out of one of the most important gifts of her entire life. She burst into tears and said she gave him a budget of $400. She didn't want a real diamond. She's lost every piece of jewelry she's owned and she didn't want to be devastated by losing this if she ever does. I thought I was doing my sisterly duty by pointing out the fake ring. Am I the asshole for telling my sister? I have a 16-year-old babysitter who watches my 4 and 8-year-old. She watches my kids from 9 to 7 from Monday through Saturday, so I asked if she liked anything stocked up in the pantry or the fridge. She mentioned that she really likes seltzer water and I had bought them for the first month, but honestly, I forgot after a while and never kept any in the fridge. A few days ago, I bought hard seltzers for me and my husband and didn't think anything of it. While I'm at work, she messaged me to say if I can come home early because she's not feeling well. I asked her to try and hold out until the end of the day. Not too long after, she called me crying, saying that something was wrong and she had to go home. She was drunk clearly. She had drank the hard seltzers that were in the fridge. I told her to leave and she walked home. She called me the next day crying that she didn't know that the hard seltzers had alcohol in them. Both her parents were alcoholics and she was diagnosed with PTSD regarding alcohol. She never planned on drinking in general. I told her not to come back as she put my children in danger. She says she really didn't know and she cares deeply about my children and would never ever drink or put them in danger. She really can't afford to lose this job. I told her to find a real job and that it wasn't my fault she got drunk. My husband says I'm being very rude and that she did try to reach out when she wasn't feeling well. And my kids are upset to see her go.
When I was 19, I had an unexpected pregnancy. My ex didn't want to keep the baby, but I did and we stayed together anyway. She was born with a birth defect and died at 2 days old. Since I knew my ex never wanted her, I definitely blamed him, which was wrong. I was upset he didn't care like I did. I ended up cheating with a guy at a support group whose young child also died. I take full responsibility. We broke up and I took a break from relationships and pursued personal therapy. My ex is married now, yet every relationship I've been in since, 3 including my fiance, he's messaged the guys warning them that I'm a cheater, and the second time he even messaged the guy's parents. Both the relationships ended shortly after, and now he's contacted my fiance, who I actually told ahead of time and he understands. I found out the reason why he's been able to find out about all my relationships is because he follows a ton of my family members on Facebook. However, I don't have a Facebook. Do I tell everyone to block him? I tried to talk to him about it and he says if I don't tell them, I'm lying by omission. But that was 10 years ago. He says that it says something about my character that can't be fixed with time. I went to therapy. It was horrible circumstances and I honestly don't think that I'm a bad person. I don't know if it would be wrong to talk to his wife. I'm afraid he's going to tell my fiance's parents or my future kids. I just want him to stop. What would you do? My ex-fiance cheated on me with my cousin, and now my family wants me to forgive him because he's sick with cancer. I'm 27 and don't have any siblings, but I have a cousin named Kevin. He's 2 years younger than me, and we literally grew up together. I spent a lot of time on my dad's side of the family as my mom is deceased and my dad never remarried because of his health issues. I was there with Kevin most of the time and we did everything together. I've always been very close with my grandparents as well, so I was very comfortable being there. When I was engaged to my ex-fiance, I used to bring her over to my grandparents' house most of the time. Her, me, and Kevin would spend our time doing things together. I noticed Kevin would try to take part in personal conversations and try to tag along whenever we went out for dinner. I set some boundaries, but he just kept stomping over them. He tried to pick fights with me and claim I'm forgetting about him and prioritizing my ex over him, and I didn't know how to deal with this, so I kept my distance. In about 2 months, I found out from my aunt about Kevin constantly meeting up with my ex, and she told me that she was worried something was going on between Kevin and my ex-fiance, and she was right. Turns out, my ex and Kevin got together while I was being kept in the dark while I was planning our wedding and handing out invitations. I felt like an absolute idiot. I couldn't handle my anger, and I stopped everything and cut contact with Kevin and the family, except my dad because he needed me. I heard that Kevin was in and out of the hospital, but I didn't know why. That was until my aunt reached out to me telling me that Kevin has liver cancer and wasn't handling it well. I drove my dad to visit him once and saw my ex, who's now his girlfriend, there, and I left right away. I kept my distance, and recently, I started getting calls from the family members asking, "Did you hear about Kevin?" and telling me the same story. My grandmother called me wanting to arrange for a family dinner on Christmas, and because Kevin got out of the hospital, they wanted me to come home hoping that I solved my issues with him, seeing that I may not be able to do it later. However, I refused. She told me that I needed to have some empathy and let go of the past because what happened to him was enough for me to let it go. They started pressuring me from all sides. I told my grandparents that I won't sit with my ex-fiance and the person who wronged me at the same table and pretend to be a happy family. They replied that I was resentful, that he's my cousin no matter what happens. It's the same people who allowed my ex into their house after what she did and sided with Kevin and said that they only allowed my ex to the house for Kevin's sake. Now they demand that I get right with him because he clearly deserves more sympathy than I do. I'm deeply hurt and I can't imagine sitting at the same table with the people who hurt me the most. What should I do at this point? I think everyone is being unfair and refusing or just ignoring what Kevin did to me.
Am I the asshole for attempting to get a family with kids evicted? I recently moved in an apartment complex and next to me lives a family of 4. The parents with their 2 kids. The kids seem to be young and one is clearly a baby and the older one possibly under the age of 3. The family also apparently owns their own apartment and they don't rent. Their kids play all day long, thankfully not during quiet hours, but they're very loud. Especially the oldest one, but the baby cries a lot too. I don't know how they manage to keep them quiet during quiet hours, but the rest of the day is a nightmare. I tried to leave a note on their doors to keep their kids from playing multiple times and asked them to do it out of respect for the neighbors. The mom knocked on my door and apologized for the noise but said that they're kids and it's normal for them to play and be loud as long as they're quiet during quiet hours. She said she shouldn't be expected to tie them down in a bed to keep them quiet all day. I insisted that it's disrespectful, but she said if I have a problem with kids making noise, I should rent an apartment complex that doesn't allow children. She also suggested me some. I thought it was ridiculous of me to be the one to move out instead of them trying to be more respectful. I contacted my landlord and asked if I can do something to evict the family. He said it's legally not possible. I complained about it to my sister, but she agrees with them and says I'm the asshole for attempting to evict them.
Am I the asshole for canceling my significant other's birthday plans after finding out I was not invited? Let me start the post off by saying my 21 female significant other, 22 male, love language is gift giving. He loved to shop for people. He loves to give gifts, especially extravagant ones. For example, over the 3 years we've been together, he's given me a car, 3 dogs, a new phone, and many more smaller items. I, on the other hand, struggle with gift giving, especially for him. He is the person, if he wants it, he will buy it for himself. 2 different times I had purchased him a gift before the holiday rolled around, he had went and purchased the exact same thing for himself. So finding something he both likes and doesn't already have is a struggle. This year, I decided I would go above and beyond. I set aside a couple $1,000s, a lot for me, not so much for him, to make sure I can get him extravagant gifts. This year, he discussed with me he wanted to go to Puerto Rico. Immediately, I found a 4-bedroom house, more than enough room for his friends, him and I. I also booked a yacht for us to spend the day on. That ended up being more than I set aside for, but I booked the yacht anyways since he always goes above and beyond for me, and I wanted him to have a great birthday. Well, tonight I asked him if I should purchase his gifts here and travel with them or if I should go shopping in Puerto Rico. He tells me I was not coming. Note, earlier this week he discussed us going to Puerto Rico. Also discussed how his friend, no named, would be traveling with us on this trip. So he immediately sensed my confusion. He quickly started backtracking and told me I would be coming just at the end of the week, missing his birthday. My feelings were hurt at first. To think the person I wanted to spend my birthdays with doesn't want to spend theirs with me hit a little different. My feelings soon changed as I realized this also meant I would miss out on the yacht I went over budget on. Immediately, I went to cancel the yacht, trying to get some form of payment back since it had already been 24 hours since booking. The yacht was a surprise, so it was never mentioned. But after canceling it and only getting partial refund, I told him what I had planned. I also told him since I would have to wait 5 days after his birthday to even see him, his gifts would not be as extravagant, and I would not have things like a cake, decorations, or anything set up for him. He told me I was the asshole. The yacht was for him and not me. So regardless if I attended, I should have left the reservation in place. He tells me his gifts should not change since he will see me after his birthday. I disagree. I can't imagine spending thousands of dollars on gifts for someone just to give it to them a week after their birthday. I also cannot imagine spending over $1,000 on a yacht that I will never see. Am I the asshole for canceling my plans for a significant other's birthday after finding out I am not invited? Am I the asshole for faking food poisoning to teach my boyfriend a lesson? So, my boyfriend, 28 male, and I, 26 female, both love to cook and are very good at it. We often make meals together and it's something we really bond over. However, he has a serious issue with cross-contamination that drives me insane. As a result, I feel like I have to constantly keep an eye on him to make sure that he is sanitizing things properly. It frustrates me that I feel like I have to watch him, and it frustrates him whenever I point out something he's done that seems unsanitary. Last Friday evening, we were making carnitas when I noticed that he was using the same knife and cutting board that he had used to chop raw pork, to then cut up onions and radishes. I could literally see red splotches on the cutting board from where the meat had been sitting. I pointed out that whenever I need to cut both meat and produce, that I always do the produce first, so that way I can use the same knife and cutting board without having to worry about cross-contamination. I then told him that we couldn't use the onions and radishes for this dish because I was not about to top my carnitas with them now that they were contaminated with raw pork. He flipped out and kept saying, "It's not like it's chicken." I said, "So what? It's still raw meat and there's still potential for foodborne illness." He wouldn't let it go. So finally I was like, "Fine, I'll eat your tainted fucking produce," which pissed him off further. He stormed off into our bedroom and refused to finish cooking with me. Without him knowing, I cut up new onions and radishes for garnishing and we ate dinner separately. The next day we were supposed to go to his parents' place as they were hosting a congratulatory dinner because my boyfriend recently got a new job. In the morning, I faked being ill and hung out in my bed watching Netflix and reading most of the day. He seemed baffled by my being sick. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I did eat those onions and radishes that you were so pressed about. He looked irritated after that, but he seemed to believe that I was actually sick. When it came time to start getting ready to head out to his parents' house, I said I was still too ill and ended up staying home. His mother messaged me later on explaining that it was extremely rude of me to have missed the dinner and that I should have taken some Pepto-Bismol or something so that I could be there to celebrate with them. I didn't even bother responding, and when my boyfriend returned home that night, I could tell he was bummed, but not mad, that I missed the dinner. Multiple people in his family are now pissed because they think I'm an unsupportive girlfriend. I do feel guilty about missing this dinner since it was important to him, but I was also at my wit's end as I've tried to talk about the contamination thing with him nicely many times in the past, but he always gets pissed off about it and then doesn't change his ways. Am I the asshole? My 35 male girlfriend, 21 female, is uncomfortable with my wife's ashes. Edit, girlfriend is 31, not 21. Going to try to keep this as short as possible. Please tell me if I'm in the wrong here. Married my high school sweetheart at age 25. She died in a car accident 5 years ago. We loved to travel, and so I had her ashes made into a diamond to take her with me on my adventures. Her ashes, along with both of our wedding rings, are on a chain I carry in my pocket on our adventures. Helps me feel close to her. I always love and miss her, but I know she would want me to be happy and find love. I've been dating a new girl for over a year. I dated a bit a couple years after her wife's death, but never found love until new girl, M. M is great and has been so supportive and understanding of my late wife. She knows about the chain and never said it bothered her, though she never knew the stone was my wife's ashes. I used to keep the chain on my bedpost, but thought it would be disrespectful to M, so it's now safe in a drawer. I still take it with me on travels. M and I have talked about moving in together when her lease ends in 2 months. I am ecstatic for this. I want to spend my life with her. Yesterday, I was packing for a solo weekend trip to the East Coast as she was over. When I picked the chain, Em asked me what the other ring was. Not X's ring or my wedding rings. I explained that I had my ex's ashes pressed into a stone and she flipped. Couldn't believe I had, quote, lied to her for a year and said what I had done was creepy and weird. Gave me an ultimatum, get rid of the stone. I can keep our rings on the chain, just not the ashes. Or she will not move in with me. I asked if I could put the stone away in a drawer, but she said no, it had to go. She refuses to spend another night with my wife in the house and said it's her or me. Please help, Reddit. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose this girl, but I also don't want to give up respect for the woman I once loved. My ex was not close to her parents, so I cannot give it to them. I can't just throw it away. I'm at a loss. Canceled my weekend trip. I just wanted to make things work with M. Edit, I keep thinking to myself that making this stone was totally crazy. M told me that no girl would ever be comfortable with it, and that if I keep the stone, I will, quote, be living a lonely, miserable life. Women or men, would this be a deal breaker to you? Am I insane? My 26 female fiance, 27 male, told me he didn't even like me for 2 years of our relationship. My fiance, Bruno, and I have been together for a little over 6 years. We met in college, and I'm the one who asked him to be my boyfriend. Last night, Bruno and I met up with some old friends for drinks. We all went back to our house afterwards. Well, into the night, once we were all wasted, we decided to all confess our secrets. It's a pretty good time, and we're all sharing goofy confessions. Suddenly, Bruno says, quote, when Gigi, me, asked me out, I was like so not attracted to her at all. The whole room falls totally silent, but he continues, quote, like she was just physically unattractive to me at the time, and I didn't like her personality all that much. I mean, I only said yes because I wanted a relationship. I probably would have said yes to anyone. I don't even think I liked her until like 2 years in. He continued talking, but I stopped listening and left the room. I immediately called an Uber and went to a friend's house. I haven't talked to him since I left. It's currently about 6-ish the next day, and I don't even want to go home. What should I do? Do you think I'm overreacting? I honestly don't know if I'll be able to get past this, but should I give him a chance? Please help a girl out.
Am I the asshole for catfishing my underage sister on Tinder and humiliating her in order to teach her a lesson? Last week, I was using my younger sister's phone because mine was dead and I needed to call a friend. Dialing my friend's number, I saw a Tinder notification of some dude messaging her. Immediately, I asked her why she's on Tinder. She's 17, and she grabbed her phone back and said, none of your business. I decided as her big brother that I wanted to have a little fun with this. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she's just swiping for fun. So I didn't want to go straight to ratting her out to our parents. To test if she was just using for fun, I decided I was going to make a Tinder profile of someone else and message her to see if she responds. I asked a good friend of mine from back in college, who happens to be a male model, if he'd mind if I used his pictures and explain the situation. He thought it would be hilarious and told me to go for it. I created the account, set my age to 22, set my swipe radius to a mile, and quickly found my sister's account. Her age was set to 19. Lie, she's still in high school. So I was definitely more suspicious of her now. I super liked, and less than an hour later, she matched and messaged me. I decided to set up a date to a fancy restaurant downtown for Sunday afternoon and told her we could head to my place afterwards. She was completely receptive and said she'd meet me there. She told our parents she was hanging out with one of her track friends and spending the night at her place. After she left, I told our parents everything and showed them all of the messages. They were pissed, and I suggested we all go to the restaurant. My dad and I just went instead and saw her sitting at a table alone, all dolled up waiting for Jim. My dad went up to her and said, Jim's not coming, and she screamed and asked what we were doing there. I told her there was no Jim and that it was effing stupid of her to try to be meeting grown men on Tinder at that age. My dad harped onto that and lectured her about lying and meeting strange men on the internet and being so willing to go back to a stranger's place. We were a bit loud, so people were starting to look at us, and my sister eventually bursted into tears and ran out. I told my friends in a group chat the situation, and they all agreed it was hysterical, except two of my female friends who said I was an asshole and cruel to her. My other friends defended me and said she needed to be taught a lesson. Now I've been wondering who's right and maybe if I went too far. Am I the asshole for wearing white at my blind cousin's wedding? I'd like to start by saying that me and my cousin, who was blind from birth, aren't very close, but we get along well as relatives. She sent me an invitation, though we don't talk as much, but since I wanted to take a break from work, I decided to go. My favorite color is white. I love wearing white because it brings out my skin glow and makes me feel comfortable and confident. I purchased a maxi white dress, nothing fancy, but goes well with my skin tone, and wore it to the wedding. There wasn't a big party with many guests, but sort of family dinner and small celebration. I really thought no one would even notice I was wearing white. My cousin and her husband obviously didn't know because no one told them. But my aunt kept giving me uncomfortable looks the entire evening, and so did my other cousin. Once I decided to leave, my aunt pulled me aside and berated me for wearing this color at her daughter's wedding. She said that just because her daughter is blind doesn't mean she's stupid and doesn't know what's going on around her, basically saying I brought negative energy and disturbed the celebration by having guests notice and by extension my cousins as well. She gave a lengthy lecture and asked if I hate to see her daughter happy and whether I pulled a stunt because my blind cousin got married before me. I was like, whoa, calm down, none of this was true. And married before me? I never thought of that. I just wore my favorite color and didn't do it because my cousin is blind and wouldn't notice. I argued with my aunt for trying to dictate what I wear, but she defended herself saying I was a guest and should have respected the bride. I left feeling very upset and exhausted from that encounter. My boyfriend said he believed I used the fact that my cousin is blind to wear white, but this didn't fly with her family. He pulled the I told you so line and said I just made my family hate me with that stunt. Even though he knows I always wear white, but he warned me that if my cousin finds out, there's going to be some issues. He suggested I get ready to apologize, but I really see no reason to apologize since I chose to wear a comfortable color that I feel confident in. So, am I the asshole for wearing white to her wedding? Am I the asshole for not acknowledging that I have a sister? 9 years ago, we found out that my mother had a 5-year affair with someone she met from work. My parents divorced and she went to get remarried to the man, Greg. My mother moved her husband and his daughter from a previous marriage into our house and I lived with them before I left for college. I remained in minimal contact with them until Kylie, my stepsister, joined my company and started working in my department. Nobody was aware of our relation since we had different last names and I told Kylie not to disclose anything about this. Last Friday, while clocking into work with a few of my coworkers, Kylie came up to me and asked if I could come home for a family dinner. By lunch, our entire department was gossiping about it and Kylie would confirm their suspicions. Fed up with all of this, I told the department that I do not have a sister. Things died down at work and I agreed to make it to dinner considering it was my mother's birthday. At dinner, I was bombarded with questions about why I refused to acknowledge my sister at work and refused to even call her my sister. My stepfather Greg told me I was a petty bully for embarrassing Kylie at work and that he has had enough of me mistreating his daughter. He told my mother that my misbehavior was a result of my parents' coddling. He demanded that I address him as my father and Kylie as my sister and to tell everyone at work that too. At this point, I had enough of his relentless chastising, so I told him that all he signed was a marriage certificate and not adoption papers, so I am not his daughter, therefore will not be addressing him as my father. I brought up the fact that I know my dad has created an account for my college fund and paid child support each month, but they use the funds to purchase a new car and to pay off credit card debt. I always found it weird that Kylie never had to get a job to go to college and could afford to stay in a nice apartment during her years there. Kylie was crying by the end of the argument. My mother broke down and yelled at me to stop, while Greg called me an ungrateful bitch. I told them that if they only had the capacity to acknowledge and care for one daughter, then do not expect me to be in Kylie's life as her big sister and left the house. I guess Kylie posted about it on social media because friends and family called me up. Some told me I was being harsh and unfair to Greg and my mother, who took care of me, as well as Kylie, who had nothing to do with this, while some understood where I was coming from. So am I the asshole for my reaction? I, 22 male, just learned that my sister, 29 female, had an abortion to be able to donate me part of her liver. It caused her divorce and I can't stop hating myself. I was very sick 4 years ago and was in need of a liver transplant. My situation was that it was very unlikely that I would get one in time. At that time, my sister was pregnant. I didn't know as it was early and she was only 2 months. My situation was getting worse and my sister decided to have an abortion, and then 2 months later, we did the transplant surgery. I never knew about the pregnancy. All I knew was that she gave me half of the liver. My sister and her husband divorced a year later. I didn't know the truth until yesterday when my mom slipped up about the abortion that my sister had. I asked her about it and she told me everything. She told me that my sister made her promise not to tell me and she failed that promise. My sister was very happy. My brother-in-law was a very decent guy. I knew they were looking forward to having children. They were great together. She always told us about how lucky she is to have found him. Apparently, at the time of their decision, my sister and her husband had great disagreement. He didn't want her to have the abortion and risk the transplant surgery and was hopeful that my situation might sort itself out without my sister's help. The chance was very small, but it was there. My sister didn't agree. They couldn't convince one another, and my sister did things anyway without his blessing. They tried working things out after the surgery. They went to counseling. They even tried to have another baby, but they couldn't get themselves to do it. He couldn't forgive my sister, and she wasn't all that apologetic, so they ended up separating and eventually divorcing. I asked my mom if my sister still thinks that she did the right thing, and she said she's not sure. I can't stop feeling guilty. My sister saved my life, but destroyed her own life by doing it. She had to abort the baby she definitely loved and looked forward to, and did that knowing that it will probably end her marriage as well. I was ready to go at that time. I had accepted my fate and I was at peace. She should have just let me. My brother-in-law should have told me, so I would have talked her out of it. I'm surprised he didn't, and I can't feel anything but hate for myself. I don't know what to do. Should I talk to my sister? What should I tell her? Should I keep my mouth shut and pretend that I don't know? I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look into her eyes and not show that I know. I just don't know what to do. Please, please help me.
Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband's ex-girlfriend? My 28 female, husband 29 male, and I have been together for 4 years. We have 1 child, 2 female together. His ex, 29 female, has never gotten over their breakup even though it's been 5 years. Also, I met him around 6 months after they broke up. She went through a lot of lengths to break us up and absolutely lost it when we announced our engagement. She showed up to our wedding in a white dress, and we later found out it was because my mother-in-law invited her as a +1. I tried to ignore it and keep the peace until she tried to pour wine on my wedding dress. I lost it and kicked her out. We went no contact with the mother-in-law since that incident and only keep contact for our daughter. His ex-girlfriend is still bitter about him breaking up with her, and she sometimes does things like follow me to the grocery store or follow us on date nights. This Thanksgiving, we had a dinner plan for close family and made the mistake of inviting mother-in-law. She brought his ex, and I tried to be polite and set up an extra spot at the table because I didn't want to be rude. Everything went well until my daughter woke from her nap before dinner and his ex raced to pick her up. She was saying things like, "Mama's here, baby. Don't worry, Mama's here for you," and I felt very uncomfortable. I then attempted to take my daughter back, and she would not let go. She said I should let her have a few seconds from the life she had stolen from her. I saw red and told her she was out of line and needed to leave and not come back.
Am I the asshole for giving my son the same name as an ex and not telling my husband? So, I'm 32 female and my husband is also my age. We met in grad school 9 years ago, got married 5 years ago, and have a 3-year-old son, Isaiah. His name isn't Isaiah, but something like it. Similar and traditional without being overly common for boys in North America. It was recently homecoming weekend and my 10-year reunion from my undergrad. My husband knows that I had one serious relationship in undergrad. It lasted 2 years with someone named Ben. What he doesn't know is that I also dated Isaiah for 6 months after. My relationship with Isaiah was not as serious as it was with Ben, and since I lived away from home, I never introduced my family to Isaiah. I didn't want to concern them with the new relationship either, as I didn't enjoy having to announce my breakup with Ben to the whole family. I never told him because I liked that name as a baby name. So, we're in my college town for the weekend and out to dinner. Isaiah walks in with some of his old friends and immediately comes up to us and introduces himself to my husband. Since his name isn't super common, I see my husband almost say, "You have the same name as our son," but he stops himself and I can tell his brain is connecting the dots. We leave the restaurant and when we're getting ready for bed, he confronts me about Isaiah. I admit to it. I apologize and stress that it wasn't a serious relationship. We were both graduating and didn't want to stay together. I don't think of adult Isaiah when I see our son either. My husband says that if we have a daughter, he wants to name her after one of his exes during the fight. This makes me feel like shit and I realize I may have been the asshole. So can you guys tell me, am I the asshole here?
Storytime about how I beat up my stalker of 4 years. When I was 18, I booked a major campaign. I started modeling at the age of 10, and it was a really big deal for me. This happened in a country where women are not treated very well. When my campaign came out, there were billboards of me everywhere in the city. My face was plastered on the internet and on social media too. Now from this, my Instagram grew a lot. Overnight, I went from having 6,000 followers to 40,000 followers. So by the end of the week, I had almost 100,000 followers. Again, this was a huge deal for me and I was really happy about it. But things started getting really weird when I started checking my DMs. I had about 40 DMs from one guy alone. The rest of the DMs were thirst traps, but this guy was different. He was becoming obsessive literally overnight. Every other message was about how beautiful I was and how he wanted to marry me. Instead of replying, I decided to ignore his messages. From this campaign, I started getting even more modeling jobs. And I also started getting paid to post stuff on Instagram. I was super happy. When I checked my DMs again, I noticed that he was messaging me even more. Once again, I ignored every single one of his messages. But after 4 days, he started getting really angry. Started commenting bitch on all of my pictures. Got to the point where I had to tell my modeling agency and they just told me to ignore him too. A few days later, I opened his DMs only to see a picture of my house. And this meant he knew where I lived. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I'm sending me an Instagram. Once again, I told my modeling agency and again, they told me to just ignore it. But it terrified me that he knew where I lived. Luckily, I lived in a really big apartment building, so I don't think he knew exactly what floor I lived on, but I took a chance and I sent him a message asking him politely to leave me alone. Believe it or not, this went on for 4 years. I would tell him to leave me alone and he would just come back with more things to say. During those 4 years, I did travel a lot for modeling, so it didn't bother me that much. Not until I got pregnant. He actually sent me a picture of me pregnant. That's when he told me that I had betrayed him and that I was cheating on him. One day I'm at my apartment and yes, I had already met a man at this time and we were engaged. My fiance was out at work. I decided to take some time off of modeling since I was pregnant. Suddenly I get a knock on my door. I opened the door to a stranger I had never seen before. Obviously at the time I didn't know it was my stalker because I didn't know what he looked like. That's when he hands me a package and he tells me that I must have left it downstairs. I told him I hadn't ordered anything and then he asked if he could come in. Said no, but he pushed his way in. When he grabbed my hand and started begging for forgiveness. And he confessed that he had been sending me the messages for 4 years. Started yelling at him to leave, but he wouldn't. He tried to kiss my pregnant belly and asked me if it was his son. And that's when I just started kicking and punching him. And I didn't stop until he was out the door. When I looked at his face, he was bleeding and scratched all over. Neighbor had come out and had already called the cops, thank God. Cops arrested him and he was taken away. They were only able to hold him for 2 weeks. Apparently he had not broken any laws. This man is out there free. What should I do?
Am I the a-hole for dropping out of maid of honor role last minute because of an emergency? My best friend Chloe was getting married last Saturday, and I was the maid of honor. For 1 year straight, I was the main planner for her and did the best that I could to fit the standards she had set for the wedding. I even planned an amazing bachelorette party for 1 month before the wedding. But I couldn't do this without the gorgeous bridesmaids as well. 2 days before the wedding, my husband had a heart attack and was hospitalized. Doctors said his situation was severe, and he was transferred in an ICU. Later, doctors told me he needs an emergency open heart surgery the next 24 hours. The situation was very life-threatening, and we could lose him any time. My best friend called me to wish me well, and I thanked her. She also asked if the surgery will happen before the wedding, and I said that it will happen the day before, but it will last for many hours. She said, "That's all right. Just making sure it doesn't intervene with the wedding, that's all. It's sad we can't have Ben there, my husband, but we'll have you and you can eat and drink for both of you. Haha." That's when I told her I won't be able to come to the wedding whether my husband's surgery is over or not, because I need to care for him and I want to be next to him until we are all 100% sure he's gonna be fine. She said she understands, but she reminded me that as a maid of honor I have a duty, and it's 1 day before the wedding, so I can't drop out. I said that I am sorry about this, but I almost lost my husband and I don't want to leave his side yet. She didn't curse me out or anything, but she was very upset and she started crying. She said she understands and wished me well again. My husband's surgery went well, and we were now waiting for his recovery. It was the day of the wedding, and I called my best friend to wish her well. She didn't pick up. Later, a video called one of the bridesmaids, and she answered. I asked to talk to Chloe, but she said she's busy getting ready. I said, fine, I'll call later. I called again and again, but no response. I thought she was simply busy with the preparations. I called the day after the wedding, and still no response. She wouldn't reply to my text at all. I contacted some of the bridesmaids and they told me that she's very upset with me for dropping out the day before the wedding, and that I should make it work no matter what. Some of them said I did what's reasonable and how my husband's health should be my priority, but some others feel like I let down the bride on her big day, and I shouldn't expect a word from her anytime soon. Am I the a-hole? Long story short, my grandparents are wealthy. My mother is very spoiled and self-centered. Additionally, I believe she likely has a cluster B personality disorder. Every single situation is somehow about her. My dad's side can't stand her because she sows chaos anywhere she goes. For example, my dad's side threw a birthday party for one of my cousins. The whole day was focused on a fight because she spent $8 on ingredients to make a lasagna to bring, then ruins the poor kid's birthday. This is just one example. But this every situation, every time she is the center of everything. Her family is pretty wild. I've been present for multiple fist fights between her and her sisters. Every fight stems from someone getting more money than the other. One time, my mom had a phone cord wrapped around my aunt's neck. Although terrible, it was kind of impressive to be honest, as my mom's a small person. Anyway, despite my grandparents being wealthy, I grew up pretty poor in the beginning. My mom got cut off a few years. Probably had something to do with the phone cord incident. I remember going to food banks for food, clothes for donations, etc. When things did get better, my parents refused to spend any money on me. If I had clothes for school, it was because my aunt bought me an outfit for Christmas. I mean, they were ridiculous with it. My grandfather, dad's side, tried to get custody of me due to neglected alcoholism. As for the wealthy grandparents, look, I'm not entitled. It's their money. But every grandchild except me got their college paid for, got a car, a down payment on a house, and a wedding. Super freaking generous. I was just hurt that I got none of these things. It felt personal. I felt it was their way of communicating that they loved me less, and that damaged our relationship. Fast forward to this week. I'm engaged. I wasn't expecting a big wedding. I was okay with eloping. But I figured my parents might want to do something since I'm their only kid. So I asked them what they wanted to do. Well, my mom was drunk because, it's 2 p.m. Confesses to the 30,000 thing. Then the next day, non-stop pressuring me into taking out a loan. I refused and say, you were given 30,000 for a wedding and a down payment, but you decided vacations and cars were more important. Then the whole thing gets turned into, poor her. Can you believe she won't get to plan a wedding with her daughter because the daughter expects a wedding to be paid in full? What a spoiled witch. Now I have relatives calling me up with this BS. They're under the impression that I'm being a diva. I keep dodging the conversation, but I don't know how long I can do it. Because once my relatives find out, there is no saving her reputation with them. Also, through all of this, found out my grandparents did give money for college. The problem is they gave it to my mom and she spent it. It must have been a decent amount too because my grandparents are under the impression that they paid my college in full. I'm at a loss. I haven't talked to my parents in a week. I know they're my parents and I need to forgive them no matter what, but this is hard. It almost feels like they aren't my parents anymore. That bonding feeling, or whatever it is gone. Sorry that this post was long. It felt cathartic typing this out. Am I the a-hole for not letting my niece borrow my engagement ring? I, 28 female, recently got engaged to the man of my dreams, and he picked the perfect engagement ring. I can't get over how well he did without asking me any questions about it. It even fits perfectly despite neither of us actually knowing my ring size. I was watching my little niece, 6 female, this weekend when she saw my ring. She thought it was really pretty and wanted to try it on. I explained to her that this ring was very special to me and that I didn't want anyone else wearing it. However, I have other jewelry that we could go through together and she could wear if she wanted. She didn't. She just wanted to wear this ring. So she started pouting. I tried to get her to focus on other things and activities, but she was still in a mood about it by the time my sister, 26 female, came to pick her up a couple of hours later. My sister was annoyed and asked why I couldn't just let her wear it for a little bit. I tried to explain, but she said I just don't understand kids. Later in the week, my sister stopped by with my niece to let my dogs out while I was at work. In my line of work, wearing a ring isn't very practical, so I leave it in the ring box by my bed and put it back on when I get home. When I get home, I couldn't find it. I panicked. I looked everywhere I could think of. I called my sister to see if she had seen it while she was there, and she admitted she took it and let my niece wear it for the day. I was fuming. They had gone to the zoo. It could have been lost anywhere. My sister even admitted that they had forgotten it on a table for a few minutes. But I shouldn't be mad because they got it back. I yelled at my sister that she shouldn't have taken the ring when I specifically told her I didn't want my niece or anyone else wearing it, because I was worried about this exact kind of thing happening. I told her that I would find someone else to let my dogs out when I was working, and that she wasn't allowed in my house when I'm not home anymore. She said I'm being unfair to my niece who loves my dogs, and just wanted to feel like a princess for a little while. I'm not mad at my niece, and I don't want to punish her for what my sister did. Am I the a-hole?
Video is probably going to be deemed as controversial, which is so sad that it would. Because in reality, there shouldn't be anything controversial about the fact that women don't owe you anything. When you call a girl pretty or compliment her outfit or take her out to dinner, that does not mean she owes you anything in return. That does not mean she owes you her phone number or favors in bed or going home with you. And it's sad because half the time the reason a woman won't say no is because a lot of men out there take the word no and the response no as a form of disrespect towards them. When in reality, it's not. A lot of times when a girl tells a guy no, it resorts to violence towards the woman. Whether that be verbal violence, physical violence, and a lot of the times even SA. All because a girl said no. And it all stems from the fact that a lot of men out there think that women owe them something. You can call a girl pretty all you want and take her out to dinner as many times as you want, but that does not erase the fact that women don't owe you anything. So to all those men and women out there, women don't owe you.
Imagine going on a cruise with your family only to end up on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. This was the fate of a young girl named Amy Lynn Bradley when she went on a holiday family vacation. Amy had just graduated and boarded the Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas cruise with her parents and her brother Brad in March of 1998. The family was having a great time together, enjoying all the ship's amenities, and Amy even became friends with the ship's band, the Blue Orchid. On the night of March 23rd, Amy and her brother partied in the ship's club. Amy danced and chatted with the bass player, Yellow, aka Alistair Douglas. Around 1 a.m., the siblings called it a night and returned to their family's cabin together. This would be the last time that Brad ever saw his sister. A few hours later, at 5:30 in the morning, Ron Bradley, Amy's father, saw her on the deck of their family's stateroom lounging peacefully. All seemed well, but 30 minutes later, when he looked again, Amy had vanished. Ron assumed Amy went back to sleep in her bedroom, but when he checked, she wasn't there either. Ron went and checked the ship's common areas, but couldn't find Amy, and the family started to worry. They begged the cruise ship staff to cancel docking at Curacao, but were ignored. Both 2,400 passengers and 765 crew members were allowed off the ship. As the Bradley family continued to desperately search for Amy, the ship's staff remained unhelpful. They didn't want to announce her disappearance or hang photos of her around the vessel, afraid it might upset the other passengers, and they only searched common areas, not staff or passenger cabins. It was possible that Amy might have fallen overboard, but extremely unlikely because she was a trained lifeguard and experienced avid swimmer. That's when her family recalled how Amy was receiving a lot of special attention from the ship's crew. A waiter had asked Amy out to a restaurant called Carlos and Charlie's during the ship's dock to Aruba. However, Amy had rejected this offer and stated how the crew members gave her the creeps. She wasn't wrong to feel this way, as it just so happens another young American woman had disappeared shortly after being seen at that same restaurant in Aruba. The Bradley family did everything in their power to find Amy, but it was like she vanished completely and all the leads went cold. However, the Bradley family never gave up and were hopeful when multiple people in the Caribbean claimed to have seen their daughter over the years. Just 5 months after her disappearance, 2 Canadian tourists spotted a woman who matched Amy's description on the beach with the exact same tattoos as Amy. These tattoos were pretty specific, such as a Tasmanian devil with a basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a lizard on her stomach, and a Chinese symbol on her left ankle. She was accompanied by 2 men, and she tried to say something, but the men gestured her away. One of the tourists believes 100% that it was her. The following year, a woman comes forward saying that she's Amy Lynn Bradley at a brothel in Curacao. 1 year after Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance in 1999, a member of the Navy was in a brothel in Curacao when a woman came up to him and told him that she's Amy Lynn Bradley. She begged for his help, but he didn't report it because he didn't want to get in trouble. The officer stayed quiet until after his retirement when he saw Amy's face on People magazine, but by then she was long gone. That same year, the Bradley family gained a tremendous amount of hope when a man named Frank Jones, claiming to be a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer, contacted them. He stated that he knew exactly where Amy was and he could rescue her from the armed Colombians holding her in Curacao. Jones even had a witness statement from a cook who told the family that Amy was being held in a complex protected with barbed wire. The cook described Amy's tattoos and even hummed a lullaby that Amy's mom used to sing to her daughter when she was a baby. However, this all later turned out to be complete fraud. Jones managed to scam the Bradleys out of over $200,000 with this charade of getting their daughter back. It turns out that all the evidence he showed them was made up, leaving the Bradleys back at square one. However, the sightings of Amy didn't stop. In 2005, the Bradleys received an email with a picture of a woman who appeared to be Amy, lying on a bed in her underwear. A member of an organization that locates sex trafficking victims on adult websites noticed the photo and thought it was Amy. She was identified as a woman named Jazz, a sex worker in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, this clue never generated new leads, and to this day, Amy Lynn Bradley remains missing. She continues to be listed on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. Her family, however, has never given up hope and have offered sizable rewards and information on her whereabouts.
Would I be the asshole by not telling a guy I've been dating for a month that I'm having artificial insemination to be a single mother? Prior to lockdown, I decided to be a single mother by choice. The journey to accepting this has taken 2 years and included counseling and a very thorough plan to ensure I could do this alone. Right before I was due to have artificial insemination with the donor sperm, the pandemic hit and treatments were canceled. There was no timeline for when things may reopen. For a few days, I was devastated as I was so mentally prepared for this, and then I picked myself up and decided to park my plan. After all, I didn't have a choice. I downloaded a dating app out of curiosity and figured that I could still chat to guys and see what happened without having any expectation. I've been talking with this guy, let's call him G, and it's only been a month, so very early stage. However, we've met up twice and spoken many times on the phone. And I get a really good feeling from him. For the first time in years, quite frankly, I feel emotionally connected with the man and it feels completely natural and promising. During this time, my clinic called me to say they have an approval to open and do I wish to go ahead this month with my treatment. I want to be a mother more than ever, so I said yes, and now I'm on medication with my appointment set for next week. While there's no guarantee I'll get pregnant on the first go, I have a conflict in mind about informing G of my plan. On one hand, it's at such an early stage of our romance without yet being anything committed that I feel like I'm bringing something up prematurely. On the other hand, I wonder what may happen as time goes on. Am I just delaying the inevitable? Is it deceptive of me not to inform him of something so fundamental in my life? A friend told me that I'd sabotage a potential relationship with him by telling him of this plan right now, and that a man who is really into me will accept me even if I'm pregnant, and that more time is needed for him to really get to know me. But in my mind, I'm wondering if it will piss him off by suddenly saying, hey, I'm pregnant by the way. Spoken loosely about wanting kids in the future, so I know he'd like a family, but it was a brief passing comment. I'm also not willing to wait to get into a long-term relationship, and we are far too early into be thinking about a family together.